Welcome to episode 29 of Chew on This, a Nerds United podcast. I'm BJ.
Vic.
Hey, so we are a week away from one of our movies on our top 10 list. For me, I think it was number 10. For you, however, it was number 1, which is the complete opposite of me.
Yeah.
So
I had it more I had it more for nostalgic reasons other than the fact that it's a really great movie.
yeah, absolutely. So we both actually had a chance to revisit Finding Nemo.
Yep.
And what it's been a few years since I've seen it, and man, does that movie still hold up? Like I still got pretty emotional through a couple of parts, especially the beginning. Those bastards, Again, Pixar does this time and time again, where they just really tug at your heartstrings. But these are like animals; they're not, humans. Like an Up. When they did that to you in the beginning of Up, but Finding Nemo, again, it does that thing right at the beginning where it just kills you. When the
Yeah.
spoilers,
Pixar loves
if
to
you haven't seen it,
Pixar loves to like gut punch you.
yeah, they do with just real world situations, but with in this case with fish.
Well,
Um,
what's crazy is that it was Walt Disney who started this whole thing. I think he lost his mother or father very early on, so that's why that's where all this started. All the Disney movies, that's why somebody dies somewhere at some point in time. Somebody dies, and the early movies, when Disney was still around, he would inject himself into his personal life into some of this stuff.
oh
So
wow,
that's why there's this trend of when there's a great movie, a cartoon movie, somebody always dies, or you'll notice in most cartoon movies somebody dies, and the person has to rise up and find themselves. So that's where that trend starts, and now Pixar takes it and makes it even worse. Like
I like
I
that.
don't even
Makes it
know.
worse.
Yeah, they make it even worse. I mean, we've talked about it before, where the beginning of Up. I mean, Jesus. I mean, that first 10 minutes of the movie, like um, I had nothing preconceived about the movie. Nobody warned me about anything when I went to go see that movie in the theater. And I'm watching this movie, and it's all fun, with the kids like pretending to be, explorers and shit like that
Yeah.
in the beginning of the movie. And then all of a sudden, like, I was like, oh my God, this is adorable. Like, those kids are adorable. Oh, cool. They grow up and they get married. This is so fun. And you're like, okay, they can't have kids. That sucks. And then right after that, it's like, okay, she's pretty sick. This doesn't look very good. And it's all in a montage. And by the end of the first 10 minutes, I'm crying. I'm like, isn't this supposed to be at the end of the movie or in the middle of the movie?
When does it get
And
fun?
yeah, and and not in a cartoon. And I'm like, Jesus Christ! Like I just went through like every single emotion in the first 10 minutes of Up. So anyway, with Finding Dory, I think Up was after Finding Dory, but with Finding Dory, it's the same
Finding
thing.
Nemo.
Or sorry, yeah,
Right.
Finding
Yeah.
Nemo. But that the trend started with Disney. To my knowledge, I'm like 99.9% sure the trend started with Disney, and that's why everybody dies in the beginning, or somebody
Yeah.
dies in the beginning.
Well, movies like Bambi, I think it was at the beginning. Lion King comes to mind the most, but they actually introduced Mufasa and actually got to know him a little bit before they killed him off. And that was pretty tough to see, Simba having to go on without his dad. But again, it's coming of age story, that kind of thing. But Finding Nemo, you know, they established right away this couple who's I don't know, newly together, and or they've been together for a while, and they have all these eggs that are going to hatch into kids, and they just moved to this new neighborhood, and they're all excited and everything, and then that barracuda comes and just ruins their lives, you know kills the mom and all the eggs except for one. So that was pretty heartbreaking watching that, the beginning of that. I was like, what,
Right.
where's the fun? What, this is supposed to be a cartoon, what's going on? But it's just the genius of Pixar. They just know how to tell a good story. And having the egg hatch and it have like the little fin, was a really cool touch too, because it added this sense of like the father's even more protective of his child. Um, not just because of the death of his mom and his siblings, but because he's also, kind of handicapped too. So,
Right.
gosh, I mean, they just layer it upon layer it at the beginning of this thing, and then they turn it into like a father, being overprotective of his son, and having it's hard to let go, hard to let them fall, hard to let them make their own decisions and fail and stuff like that. And I know exactly where he's coming from because I'm a dad of a son, and you have two girls, and so it's really hard sometimes to let go. And that's basically what the premise of the movie is: just letting go, letting your kids, grow up. But the other aspect of it, if you look at it technically, this movie, when it came out, was one of the most astonishingly looking graphically. Just looked incredible compared to anything before it. Um, the lighting and the water effects and all that stuff. It felt so incredibly realistic. It was crazy. And they
Yeah,
must.
one of the toughest things to do in animation and special effects for that matter is water. That was like one of the last things to for special effects people to and we're talking real effects, real world effects, to get them to say like, okay, we can do this. Like James Cameron's Abyss was a big breakthrough when they were able to animate the water and make it look realistic. And with Pixar, every movie that you see, is always setting the standard higher and higher. And Finding Nemo definitely did that with the world water effects that they used in this movie. Um, Even though it's a cartoon, the effects and the shadows and the reflection must have been painstakingly difficult to do this movie because
Yeah.
it's always difficult to do shadows and sunlight in animation, but then the way that water refracts light is completely different, a whole new ball game, and Pixar did an amazing job with this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were working on it for a good 5 years, 5 or 6 years, or something like that. Which is just blows my mind that you spend that long working on something. But interestingly enough, like I was reading more and more into Finding Nemo because I think back then, I don't know, I guess I was in the internet, but I didn't really look around all that much. But I recently, after I watched it, I had to go and dig up some facts about Finding Nemo and found some interesting things. Andrew Stanton, he's the one who directed it, and he actually, I think, does a voice. I think he does the voice of Crush in the movie.
He's also
Um,
I think he's also the screenplay writer too, or the screenwriter for
yeah,
this.
which that's so cool. But yeah, he said that when he was a kid, he used to love going to the dentist because they had like this really cool fish tank, and he would sit in there and look at the fish tank, and he'd always often wonder if they were from the ocean, and they wanted to go home. So I thought that was cool. And then he said, like, after his son was born, they visited Discovery Kingdom, which I've been there before with my son. There's like this shark exhibit where you go through a tunnel and the sharks swim over you and stuff like that. And I guess he kind of looked at that and said, "Oh man, like I think I could do this in animation." And that's where I guess but beyond and above that, he was talking about when he was taking his kid around in the park. I think might have been 5 or 6, his son. He was very overprotective of him, and I think that's where the story kind of formed about the father being overprotective of the son, and also melding that with with fish. Like the fish were going to be the characters in the story. So I thought that was really cool. That he kind of put all that together, and that's where Finding Nemo came from. Of course, I don't think he lost his kid in the ocean, but
But yeah,
uh,
he's also has he definitely paid his dues to get to direct Finding Nemo. So this guy has writing credits for most of the major A-list Pixar movies. Toy Story, he had part of the screenplay. A Bug's Life, with which most people don't consider a great one, but um, I do like it, and it's kind of based off of Aesop's Tale. A
mhm.
screenplay for Toy Story 2, screenplay for Monsters Inc., obviously for Finding Nemo. Then he also did screenplay for um, Wally, Toy Story 3. Um, Unfortunately, he also did one for John Carter.
Yeah, yeah. That
And
was
so he gets to do Finding Dory, but he's also in pre-production right now for Toy Story 4. So
oh, I
he's
can't
got
wait.
yeah, he's got a lot of writing credits to him. He's directed a few of Pixar's good films, Finding Nemo, Wally. He'll be directing Finding Dory, or did direct Finding Dory. And again, the one blemish on his directing or career is John Carter.
Yeah, which was his only live action one, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. I still haven't watched that movie. I couldn't get through the first 20 minutes. I just kept falling asleep,
I
and it
did.
was
I watched it all the way through, and it's not as bad as most people make it out to be, but you can you can see how the dense material kind of was difficult to kind of bring it. He didn't get he they didn't nail it. There were a couple of cool things and a couple of cool plot twists in the story, but
mm,
it's I would say it to me it's probably better than any of the Fantastic Fours, which isn't saying too much.
right, right.
Um, but it's on the same level probably as the first Fantastic Four, where they got a few things right, but didn't didn't you know
Yeah, didn't
crack the
nail it.
code. Yeah, but it's worth a watch. It's worth a watch when you're like, you kind of check out what he can do live action. It's not that bad. It's not as bad as people make it seem to be.
Yeah,
Especially for the. I think they did a really bad job marketing that film too, because the book is called, I think, John Carter from Mars, and then they changed the name of the movie to just John Carter,
yeah. That's
and people were
dumb.
kind of confused.
Yeah, that's not
People were
smart.
already confused about it, so that's probably why I didn't make a lot of money, and then you get bad reviews, and kind of snowballs from there. But it's not a bad watch.
Yeah,
You could do a lot worse.
yeah. I'll check it out one of these days. I mean, I gave Fantastic Four a shot after it came out on DVD, so I'll give this a shot one of these days. I
Yeah,
got when I'm
yeah.
sick in bed, nothing to watch. Uh, but
So it's back to Finding Nemo. So Finding Nemo is one of the very few Rotten Tomatoes that is at 99 or above. It's sitting at 99%. I'd
yes,
like to know who the 1% is and thought this movie was bad, because those people don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
they
How
like
can you
Satan.
watch? How
They
could you?
like
Yeah,
Satan.
yeah. They're probably obsessed with sushi or something. Like, there's no reason to not like this movie. Everything about this movie is great. Dory, a great character. There's everything about this movie is memorable. Even the seagull at the end. All the fishes in the aquarium. I mean, I don't know one complaint I have about this movie.
No, it's so good from top to bottom. I mean, so well written, so well acted. Um, I'd be really hard pressed to find anything wrong with this movie. I mean, and
Well,
it's
just out of curiosity, why did you have it at 10? I know we talked about it briefly. Why did you have it at 10?
oh, for Finding Dory.
Yeah.
Um, that's a good question. I think it's just one of those things where it's just been so long since the first movie came out that I'm excited for it, but it's not. I'm not Star Wars excited for it. And there's other movies that like Civil War, and I think even Batman v Superman, where I was looking forward to that more because it's new. So
Hmm.
sequels I kind of reserve for kind of higher up in the top 10. But I I could almost guarantee though when I go see this movie, Finding Dory, it's probably going to shoot up. It's probably going to shoot up. Everything I've seen so far from it has gotten me really excited. Um,
Well,
but
we'll have that end of the year recap for all of our top tens that made it and didn't make it, and probably re rank our top 10
oh,
in the
for
year.
sure, for sure,
I
and we're
already
gonna
know a few movies that are going to be out, or a few movies that I didn't even have listed that are going to be in. So,
yeah, absolutely. And some movies we might push out of our top 10 and bring other movies in. So we'll see.
I got a couple of those too.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But So this movie, like you said, it was 99% Rotten Tomato, which is fantastic. Just unbelievably fantastic for a movie. Probably the high. I don't know. I'd be hard pressed to say it might have been the best rated movie of that year. Um, but it also made a crud ton of money. I mean, it was almost $1 billion. This movie, and
It's the first movie that it was the first. It was the first Disney movie, even though it's Pixar, to actually surpass The Lion King as the highest grossing animated film of all time at that point in
yeah,
time.
yeah. Well, I think Shrek 2 had passed Lion King, and I think this one passed that. But now you have what Zootopia just hit the $1 billion mark. I think Toy Story 3 is at I think the highest. It's over a
Yeah,
billion,
probably.
something like that. Yeah, but speaking of Zootopia, just real quick, that movie quietly hit a billion. It's like nobody's saying anything about it. It's really, really bizarre. It's probably the highest rated movie of the year, and hardly anyone's talking about it.
Yeah, it
Um,
is kind of weird.
but it's such that's I mean they're just Disney's just nailing it from both ends on Disney animated and Pixar. But and the other thing that Pixar does really well is casting. They have the best record of casting people for their movies. Um,
You said Disney or Pixar?
Pixar,
Pixar.
Pixar. I mean, Marvel and Pixar are it's uncanny. They very rarely do they have any kind of a misstep. I can't really even think of one on the top of my head. But I mean, you got Albert Brooks as the main character. You have Ellen DeGeneres, who it, her her idiosyncrasies, her nuances, all that stuff that she does, like on her television show or on stage, they took that character and put it in this movie, and it worked perfectly. There's like nobody else that could do that kind of acting, you know. Um, William Defoe, you know, Brad
Jeffrey
Garrett.
Rush.
Oh yeah, Jeffrey Rush. Like I had no idea he was in this thing. Allison Janney's voice is pretty. You could figure that out. Stephen Root, Vicky Lewis, Joe Rampt, which I think he was one of the people that wrote for Pixar. I think he passed away before Wally came out. Yeah, Jeffrey Rush played Nigel the Pelican, I think.
Right.
Um, yeah, there's so many voice talents. I think Eric Bana was in it. He was the Incredible Hulk.
John
Uh,
John Ratzenberg has a really memorable one in here. The ongoing joke for Pixar is that Ratzenberg is in every single
every single one.
Pixar movie, but sometimes his role is rather small, whereas this one is pretty memorable, where he plays the School of Fish.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's very rare that I mean, most of his roles are small. You're right, but some of them are quite substantial. Like I think in A Bug's Life, he's like the little headmaster of the circus, the flea.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it all started with Toy Story, and then they decided to put him in everything. So you basically just like listen for him. It's almost like or actually, it's more like probably Marvel took it from them, but it's like putting Stan Lee in all the Marvel movies. You just have to wait to see when Stan Lee's going to pop up, and same thing with Ratzenberger's voice. Like you just have to wait to see where he's going to be
yeah,
in a Pixar movie.
exactly. And when it pops up, you always have that smile on your face, like there he is. Cliff
Yeah.
Clavin, there he is. Um, so I found out something actually kind of interesting. I didn't know this, but apparently Megan Mullally had she was originally supposed to do a voice in the movie. They actually sought her out and they wanted her to be a voice in the movie. Now at the time, she was pretty big on Will and Grace, playing Karen. And she had a very specific whiny voice that she did on that show. Very memorable. And they hired her, or they wanted her to be in the movie, and then they found out that she doesn't sound anything like Karen Walker on Will and Grace. She actually has a completely different voice. Like that was a character that she developed on her own. Um, and so the producers they went ahead and hired her anyway, and they wanted her to do that Karen Walker voice, but she refused. And then they fired her. Now it doesn't
What was
say
the role?
I don't know. It didn't say. Like I'd have to do a little more digging, but when I found that out, I was like, "Whoa, that's a trip!" Because she has a very distinct voice on that show,
Well, it's
and
definitely not. It's definitely not Dory, because I heard that Dory was specifically written for Ellen DeGeneres.
oh yeah, they absolutely, but it
So it had to
had
be
to.
like a side character, or maybe somebody from, maybe one of the fishes in the tank.
Yeah, possibly. And it was supposed to be like when you listen to it, you'd be like, "Oh shit, that's Karen Walker from Will and Grace." No way, But she didn't want to do the voice. She's like, "I don't want to be." Probably was thinking, "I don't want to be known just for that voice all the time." She probably wanted to do her own thing, but they fired her and hired somebody else. And but I have no
Well,
idea.
unfortunately, she probably hasn't done anything since that voice. I don't think really.
Probably not. But
Well, she was actually no, that's not true. She was in a pretty memorable part in Parks and Recreation. She played the ex-wife.
oh, my Tammy number 2, I think. Oh my
Yeah,
God. Yeah, she
she was
was
really in
awesome
that.
in that. But that was kind of part Karen Walker, part Megan Mullally kind of thing. I don't like, um, but yeah, I would be interested to see. She could have been the Allison Janney part, which is the starfish. But yeah, I don't know. I'd have to kind of look into that. But so
It was an interesting choice to get Albert Brooks too, because he had come in late actually, Albert Brooks, because William H. Macy, who's an amazing actor, actually was originally Marlin, and I guess it just wasn't working, and they then hired Albert Brooks to redo all of the dialogue.
wow, what a catch! I mean, that's I mean, he's amazing in that. I can't imagine anyone else doing the voice of that. That's like,
Yeah, I know. I was crazy when I heard his voice. I was like, wait a minute, they got Albert Brooks. I was like, oh, that's brilliant because I haven't seen him in anything substantial in a really long time, and he's got a very distinct voice too.
it's very neurotic. He's got an excellent
Yes,
neurotic voice.
yeah, and so does you know what? So does William H Macy. If you listen to him in Fargo, and then you also listen to him in Jurassic Park 3, or is it 2? No, Jurassic Park 3.
Three, yeah.
He's got that, I don't know what you call it, this William H Macy thing going, and I can kind of see why they hired Macy for the role, but I would be curious. I mean, not that we'd ever get the chance to see that or hear that, but I would have loved to have heard his version of Marlin versus Brooks's version
It's
of
probably
it.
completely different though. I'd have to imagine it's way different because like it's so distinct. Like I just watched it this morning, and his voice is so distinct. I mean, it's like I could pick his voice out. I could pick like Woody Allen's voice out. I could pick, there's just certain people that as soon as you hear it, go like, oh, that's so and so. But it's just done so well, and it's probably why they hired Megan Mullally because of her voice. It was like, oh, that's really recognizable. Let's do her. But of course, that's not her real voice. But Ellen DeGeneres, you could pick it right away. You knew who it was. But she just did an unbelievable job. But yeah, what are you? The plot of the movie? There's so many little things that happen in the movie that progress the movie along to get Marlin to where he needs to go. And then they have like a whole other plot going on of Nemo trying to get out of the tank at the dentist, which some of the biggest laughs are in that tank because a lot of funny stuff like happens in there. Um, and that's where I think he meets uh, William Defoe's character, who's like all scarred up and stuff, and I can't. Why was he scarred up again? Did he try? Is that from trying to escape before?
I Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah,
Yeah, I just thought that was really cool.
or
You
maybe he
know,
got it from the ocean. I can't remember. It
yeah,
was either the
something.
ocean or trying to escape.
Yeah, it was something like that. Like every character in there was pretty distinct, and they were all funny in their own ways. Like the little fish with the every time the chest opened up and the bubbles came out, he's all bubbles, and he try to get
Right.
the bubbles, and the chest would close, and you get all sad.
You know what's
But
funny about this movie is like the music is kind of distinct too, even from the very beginning to the very last part when it's just the ocean when it backs away from the ocean.
yeah, how did
It's
they
it's
do
very
that?
distinct music. So what's crazy about that? So picture the beginning of the movie where they show the words Finding Nemo kind of fading into the water, and then the movie ends with it coming back away from like the water shot again, right? It's very
Hmm.
subtle. It's very calming almost. It's this very, I don't even know how to describe the music in the beginning and at the end. It just warms you somehow. I don't know how else to describe it.
Is it
But what
like a harp or something, or like a
No, I don't
it's
know.
yeah, it's
I'm not
weird.
sure, but the feeling that it gives you is this warm type of feeling, right? So
Yeah.
picture Danny Elfman or Hans Zimmer doing the score for this movie because that almost happened.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
if Danny Elfman
picture
did it,
Danny
it would.
Elfman. It would have
Yeah.
been weird, right? Because he's got a
Yeah.
distinct. I
Yeah.
don't even know how to describe how he does his music. It's just very distinct. And Zimmer is very powerful and like I don't even know. A lot of his most recent stuff is has to do with superhero movies, so it's kind of hard to pull him away from other things because most of his most catchy type of stuff has always been like this like powerful masculine type of
Isn't
uh, uh,
he doing some major superhero movies coming up too?
I think
Huh.
he's done with DC. I think he's done with DC. But
Okay,
because
okay.
I think he said Batman v Superman was his last one. He
Well,
doesn't want to do any more
who's the
superhero movies.
biggie? Who's the biggie that's doing the Infinity Wars?
I don't know. But
Yeah, some.
just think about their styles and how it would have probably like completely been the opposite of what we got
Well,
from the
Da- Danny
eventual
Elfman.
Thomas Newman.
Yeah, Danny Elfman's very distinct. You're right because he does a lot of the Tim Burton movies, and
Right.
which works really well with his sensibilities. I mean, the music goes really well with, all those movies, Edward Scissorhands, and
I mean,
you know all those
his other
Tim.
big one was the Spider-Man movies he did, and
Oh
it's very distinct as
yeah,
well.
the Sam Raimi ones.
Yep.
Ah, that's right. I
Funny
like.
enough, ironically enough, Hans Zimmer did the score for the second Amazing Spider-Man.
Really, he didn't do it for the first one.
No, that was the guy who did Titanic. Um, fuck, what's his name?
Man, it just seems like there's not a lot of big time composers out there anymore. I mean, John Williams is the top of the list, but
Who the hell
he's
did the music for Titanic? I'm drawing a blank because this guy won every fucking musical award possible for that movie because he wrote the song "My Heart Will Go On."
oh
What?
yeah.
Ah, shit. The hell is his name?
It's Horner. Horner.
Yeah, James Horner.
James Horner.
Right. Yeah, so he did the first Amazing Spider-Man, and then he backed out of the second Spider-Man reportedly because the movie was so fucking awful he didn't want to do it. That was the rumor that he didn't want
Yeah,
to do the second movie. And then they brought in Hans Zimmer, and you can hear Hans Zimmer, especially when you see Electro.
yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so Danny Elfman and Hans Zimmer were two people that they asked to do for Finding Nemo,
It was a
and
bummer about James Horner. I think he died in a plane crash last year.
did he really?
Um, yeah, like I remember seeing something like that in the I almost said the paper on the internet, and because one of the things that they brought up was that he was one of the guys that got paid really well for doing the Titanic soundtrack. He got paid like $1 or $2 a CD or something like that. He sold like 27 million copies, so it was some astronomical, amount of money that he got for a composer. But yeah, I think he died in a plane crash last year. Really
My favorite
sad.
score from him, my favorite score from him comes from Braveheart. Actually,
Yeah. Oh,
I could
dude,
listen to that music forever.
yes, that music is amazing. Holy crap! He also did like uh, Star Trek, The Wrath of Khan, my favorite Star Trek movie.
Oh, really? It's going to be interesting because he's always done, or not always, but he has recently been a big um, James Cameron person, even though Cameron's only put out two films in like 20 years. But
Well,
um,
Avatar, yeah, he did Avatar.
so yeah, so I wonder who he's hiring for that whenever the hell he starts filming that movie.
Yeah, yeah, it's going
But
to be
anyway,
interesting to see. Music for me is a really big deal when I'm watching movies. If the music
yes,
sucks, then like totally example of that is when you watch that Batman v Superman trailer and that music is going. It is the most annoying music ever, and
yeah. Surprisingly, that was Hans Zimmer too. I think, right?
it might have been, dude, but it was terrible. It's like it was like just this weird music that kept ramping up, but it wasn't good. It was annoying more than anything else. Um, and then in the third trailer, they got rid of the music altogether and did something else. And I was like, okay, that's better. But yeah, anyway, but back to Nemo. Yeah. So, well, what I really loved about Finding Nemo, I mean, what can you not say about like Pixar movies? They're always like really well written and really well acted. And this movie is kind of like their, I don't want to say like Pixar has peaked. They kind of did a little bit. Like, you know how back in the 80s or 90s, like I think the first movie that started Disney's animation craze was like Little Mermaid or something like that. And then it went to Aladdin and then more and more and more. And then I think it crescendoed with Lion King and then it started to go downhill from there, like with
With like
Pocahontas.
Hercules, I think.
Well, Pocahontas and then Hercules and then Hunchback of Notre Dame, you know, they had kind of some stinkers in there. Never fully really recovered. I mean, they did Tarzan, which was pretty good. It's just kind of really up and down. With Pixar, it's pretty steady as far as like all the movies are very solid. But I remember, I think Finding Nemo is where it kind of crescendoed there for a little bit. Like that was their masterpiece, you know. Um, and then from there, it just kind of, I'm not saying Pixar went downhill from there, but it just felt like that, like they hit their peak, like animated wise and story wise and you know, and stuff like that. And now it seems like Pixar is like cranking out sequels now, like a lot of sequels.
Yeah,
Um,
that's kind of upsetting to me because I always looked forward to their original material. And my God, like this year we got, or last year I should say, we got Inside Out. What a creative,
oh,
like masterpiece that was.
yeah,
Like that was so different. Nothing. I mean, yeah, there's this ongoing joke where Pixar just takes things and gives it feelings, right? So,
right.
what happens if you give bugs feelings? What happens if you give toys feelings? And then Inside Out is what happens if you give feelings feelings. you know, so but regardless of what it is, it was so unique in how they deal with telling a story. And don't get me wrong, I love Toy Story. If they came out with Toy Story 20, they just keep getting better and better. I'm in the theater watching every single Toy Story that I could
Absolutely.
possibly watch. I even watched like the little 10-15 minute little cartoons that they do
The
for
little
the Disney Channel.
shorts. Yeah.
Yeah, the shorts. Yeah, I love those too. Um, but um, but everything they do is different. Like a lot of people don't talk about Wally, but that movie's really phenomenal in the fact that there's barely any dialogue in that movie at all,
Right.
and you still understand and get everything that they're trying to do in that movie. So
Yeah.
that movie needs to take a lot more get a lot more credit than it deserves. God, Monsters Inc. I remember that was different. I was like, oh my god, that was unique too because it was, and I did not like Monsters University. But Monsters Inc. It was great because it was like, oh cool, they're gonna see like take that spin on like kids and monsters in their bedroom, which was fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was
Completely
great.
different. I really wish they didn't do Monsters University. I wish they went to like a different one. But man,
Well, for
I
me,
think the only
like
ones I don't like is Cars. I know you liked Cars a little bit better than I did. I hated
I
Cars.
I like Cars one more than, well, yeah, way more than you do. I do like that movie, but that's for nostalgia reasons too. That was the first movie I ever took my son to. But yeah, the rest of the movies after that, you know, like Ratatouille, I thought was pretty good, pretty decent.
Yep.
Little silly, you know, with the rat thing, but it was still good. Wally, I just fell in love with. Up, I fell in love with. Toy Story 3 was probably their other masterpiece beside Inside Out. Um, Cars 2 is probably their biggest misstep. And then Brave was like just a really cool, like decent movie. It wasn't, you know, anything to write home about. I mean, it was still good, but it was like Bugs Life good. It wasn't, you know, this, oh my God, everyone has to go out and watch this movie. It's okay. And
Yeah, it was
Monsters,
different.
yeah, Monsters University, I liked it for what it was, but I wasn't a huge fan of that. But the one that I'm really pissed about is The Good Dinosaur. I really wanted to like that movie and I didn't like it at all. Um,
Yeah, that movie was
Especially
basically
coming right after
not
Inside
great.
Out, man. Like if like let's say they put out The Good Dinosaur last summer and then they put Inside Out in November, I think they would have done a lot better. But Inside Out is just, it's fucking pure masterpiece genius. And you put out Good Dinosaur, it just doesn't even hold,
It's
a
not a
quarter a
bad.
quarter of a candle.
It's not bad. I mean, for me, it's better. It's better than Cars. For me, anyway, it's better than
Okay.
Cars. It's definitely better than Cars 2. Um, I think for nostalgia reasons, it's not as good as Monsters University, even though I really didn't like Monsters University.
Yeah.
Um, Prequels are just so like you really need to know what you're doing when you're doing a prequel. It's very difficult to do a prequel.
Well, it
Let's see what
followed
else.
a lot of the it's like they took Revenge of the Nerds and put Monsters Inc. in it. Basically, that's basically what it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, you're right. It
Animal
really was.
House, um, but they have some, Finding Dory is the next sequel, and I think they're working on Cars 3 and Incredibles 2 and like all these other sequels. I don't know of any new original material they have coming. I'm sure they have something down the pipeline, but
Don't forget Toy Story 4.
Toy Story 4, yeah, so they got a bunch of sequels. Disney, I think their next big movie is called Moana, which is I think a Hawaiian story. I think there's a female lead, and I think The Rock is in it, which we've talked about. We'll watch anything with The Rock in it.
Right.
Um, so that comes out this Christmas or somewhere around
Not
there.
looking forward to Cars 3. Definitely looking forward to Incredibles 2.
Oh,
Um, with the
yes.
big like superhero like bursting onto the scene type thing, a lot of people don't consider Incredibles a superhero movie. They just consider it a cartoon for Pixar.
Which really
But
pisses me off because you try to you
right,
put majority of the superhero movies next to that and it holds up. You put like, it's what Fantastic Four should have been, because most people are like, oh, it just mimics Fantastic Four. And I'm like, yeah, but it does it fucking awesome. Like, you got Sam Jackson in it yelling, like, where's my super suit? It's fucking awesome. It's my favorite part of the whole movie. Where's
yeah,
my suit, woman? Yeah, just
I love her response is even better though.
yeah. I, I I mean, even superheroes have problems. So I loved it. That's such an awesome movie. I have to watch that again. Shit, it's been a long time, but yeah. All in all, Finding Nemo is it still holds up after 13 years. It's a great film. I'm really looking forward to Finding Dory. In fact, I think next week we're reviewing it, which I'm really looking forward to that. Um, and I don't know. Have you seen anything ratings wise on it? Has it been pretty quiet?
I don't know. I think it might be a little bit too early for it. I don't think I don't think I saw anything on it other than what it's people anticipating it and things like that. There's really not a lot of there's nothing on it. There's no reviews or anything on it. It would absolutely crush me if this movie did not rate in the 90s.
Yeah,
Um,
me too. I kind of feel that way too.
for me, it's a little bit you have your cars nostalgic reasons, but if you actually took your son out of the equation, the movie's not that great. Um,
Right.
my reason for rating Finding Dory number one is for nostalgic reasons. It's the last movie I ever saw in the theater with my mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I took my mother out of the equation, Finding Nemo is still, uh, uh, you
It's
know,
still way up there.
top
Still
movie.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah, for sure.
so I was a little apprehensive when I found out that it was Finding Dory. I'm like, okay, that's a little weird that now the whole movie is centered around a side character. And usually when you do side character, you change the plot and make it about the side character. It doesn't really work too
It
well.
doesn't
Like
work. Right.
the last one I can think of is like the Minions. Um, they're good in little portions, but then you put them in an entire movie, the gags, you have a hard time finding all the
Oh
gags
my
that make you
god.
laugh.
Thank you for saying that because I watched that movie and I thought it was the most boring cartoon, and yet it did $1 billion. You know.
It wasn't great. I didn't mind it. I have nostalgic reasons for it because that's the first movie I ever took my daughter to.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. There's definitely funny parts of it, but you could tell like they were having a hard time trying to make the thing move along. It wasn't the movie that I thought I was going to get. Like I thought that you know the trailer that they showed was basically like the first 5 minutes of the movie, and I was like, wait, you're
Yeah.
just brushing over all this stuff,
Right.
you know?
Which
So
I
I was
which I thought
disappointed
that
in
stuff was
that.
more. I thought that stuff was more interesting than what I
Yeah, so
got
did
too.
I thought I was going to get like the minions in segments throughout history, not like montage it like they did in the trailer.
Right. And
Because
they
I was like, oh
rushed
man, I
it.
would, yeah,
Yeah, and at the end of it, they got to Groot, which I really wish they wouldn't have done that because they could have kept that thing going. But
yeah, yeah. So that was my apprehension for Dory, but then I saw the trailer and I saw all the subsequent things after that, and I'm like, okay, this is making me feel better about it. So
yeah,
I'm really looking forward to this movie.
especially when Peter Gabriel's song pops up. I love that song. Grab your things. I'm gonna take you home. I was like, oh, I love that song. So
Yeah,
yeah, they
yeah.
do such a good job, cutting trailers too, man. I love some of the new creatures in that movie. Like it looks like Ed O'Neill is going to be the octopus or whatever that is. That
Oh, is he?
I think so. I
Huh.
think it's Ed O'Neill.
I know they specifically wrote the role for the whale shark for the woman who is in It's Always Sunny.
Oh yeah, Caitlin Olsen. She's awesome.
Yeah, she's the whale shark.
I love her to death. I love that show. You still have not been watching that show, have you? It is still after 11
No,
seasons. After 11 seasons, dude,
I
it is
started getting
still
back
amazing.
into it. Dude, we have so much crap to watch. I'm trying to
Yeah, I
empty the
know.
DVR now. I'm trying to finish Falling Skies right now.
Oh God, don't bother. I finished that.
Well,
It's a total letdown.
well,
But
I have like 6 episodes left. I'm kind of stuck into it right now, so I'm kind of
oh yeah, you got to finish it.
unlike Gotham. I'm not. I'm too far into it. I have to finish it, knowing that it's done. Knowing that it's done.
I
So
know. We just watched Preacher episode number 1 again because we hadn't we let too much go by between the first and the second one, so we watched the first one again, and it's just
the one
oh man,
thing
it's
that
so good.
you know what.
Oh,
Yeah, what's crazy is going back to Finding Dory is, and this always happened to me growing up. So, did you ever watch like the Transformers or GI Joe or like Heathcliff or something like that, where
absolutely.
a character's a character's voice was different, and you're like, wait a minute, why does that voice sound different?
Oh, Ren and
Like, why does
Stimpy. They did it to be in Ren and Stimpy and Futurama
right?
and some other shows I loved.
So I don't know if a lot of people know this out there, but it's not the same Nemo.
Well, no, because Nemo's 13 years older and all grown up,
Yeah,
so they
so
had
they
to
got
get
somebody
somebody
else to
else.
play Nemo. So I'm wondering if it's going to be easily like distinguishable that it's not
Well, I'm
Nemo.
wondering how far off is this from Finding Nemo? Is it a couple years later? Is it a month later? Is it start directly after the other one?
Well,
You know,
looking at the trailers and stuff, it doesn't look like Nemo's gotten any bigger. So looks about the same.
well, that's their mistake right there. They should have made him a little bit older. That would have made more sense for the changing the voice. But what do I know? I don't know. It's been 13 years. Shit. But
Well, I mean, the main character of Finding Nemo was actually Marlin. So it was actually Marlin's story more than Nemo's. If anything, I would say it was like 60-40 between the two.
yeah, I'd agree with you.
But the fact that you take like one of the main two characters and you get another actor to play him, it's almost like Back to the Future.
Totally. Little Jeffrey Weissman situation.
Yeah,
Um,
so
the other
we'll see.
thing that we didn't talk about, I don't know. I guess it's something we could save to next week. But a lot of like controversial stuff about Finding Dory has been in the news lately about
Oh, the
in
lesbian
the
couple.
yeah the lesbian couple, supposedly the lesbian couple in the trailer, and people would have made a
That's
big
so
stink
fucking
about it.
stupid.
It
Do
really
they
is
like
stupid.
that's so fucking dumb, and here's why. Do they have any idea who Dory is? You're annoyed at the lesbian couple in Finding Dory, but you don't have a problem with Dory.
Right.
Are you
And
fucking moronic?
it's
Probably the most famous lesbian on the face of the earth is the main character, but you have a problem with the lesbian couple or potential lesbian couple because that's not confirmed.
right. It wasn't
It's not.
confirmed. I've heard people have been laughing it off. They're like, whatever, dude. So it doesn't. it really, I actually, you know what? Shit. I mean, more power to them. They should do it. You know, it's like you should do. It's real world,
Yeah,
people. It's the
exactly. Like I
21st
don't.
century. You know,
I think
put
like
more.
Louis C.K. like said it best in one of his stand-ups where he was like, "Wait a minute, two people can't get married. Two gay people can't get married because you want to explain it to your shitty kid."
Yeah, you know what would make it even better if there were two Asian lesbian couple. You know, that'd be a lot even better.
They
You
were
know,
probably Asian people in the screenplay, but then they changed it to white people when they were drawing it.
we can't get the slants right.
No,
It just
fucking Asians just losing in cartoons too.
right. It's terrible. It's a terrible business. But
Um,
any, anyway, well, I enjoyed watching Finding Nemo again. It was pretty awesome. I don't know about you. Did you get to revisit it?
I revisit it at least once every 2 weeks, so I did not need to do that. So
Wow, between Frozen and Finding Nemo, you got to be like ready to blow your brains
Frozen,
out.
Finding Nemo, Toy Story. The big one is now Zootopia. I mean, I don't need to revisit any cartoon. That's the best thing about doing these podcasts for these cartoons because it's like, fuck, I'm already prepared for it. I don't need to watch anything.
I can tell you, I could like recite the whole movie for you.
Yeah. I mean,
Just
name me a scene. I already know it.
that's funny. Turn the sound off. Like I could turn the sound off on Episode 4 Star Wars, and I could watch it and do all the dialogue. I've memorized it.
I can
I've
be,
watched it so many times.
and yeah, I could do the opposite too, where I could not even be in front of the TV and I can hear. Here's how big of a film nerd I am, right? Or just a movie film nerd in general, right? So I used
Hmm.
to work for a cable company, and somebody called in and had issues with their cable. So they decided to, while they called in, have their TV really loud in the background, right?
Oh God.
So I literally said to the person, like, could you please turn Braveheart down? And they're like, how the fuck did you know that? I'm like, I
I'm
just
standing
know the
outside your
music.
window.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm upstairs.
Yeah.
I'm staring at you.
That would be messed up.
You'd be like, how the
That
fuck did you know? How did you know that? I'm like, I'm
I'll never leave you. I'll never leave you.
always
Yeah. Oh man, you just hear him like screaming and hanging up. That'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, exactly.
You're gonna
But
die
yeah,
in one
like,
week.
but yeah, like it kind of freaked out the person because all I did was hear the music and like I just knew exactly where it was from.
I could do that. I could do that too. You could
That's
picture the
weird.
scene in your head. You know, you
Yep.
could picture the scene right in your head and know
Yeah.
exactly
Like
even
if I could hear the music, I'm like, all right, this is where they do this, or
exactly.
so yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really sad gift. It's a really bad superpower to have.
It's completely useless.
It's the worst fucking superpower to have.
Now, if you're ever on like Name That Tune movie edition, you might be, you
Yeah.
might be able to make
Or
some money.
if like since Independence Day is on my top 10 list, if Martians ever attacked the Earth and I needed to outplay the Martian by name that tune, I would fucking save the Earth.
That's a good situation to
Yeah, yeah.
have. All
But
right.
other than that, it's a completely useless superpower.
It's like idiot savant of movie soundtracks.
Well, at least with like idiot savants or whatever, they have like useful things like this. Like usually savants can paint or know
Like
math
math.
or like do music or something. Not me. I
Dude,
fucking know like
you're
I know
Asian. You
music.
should be predisposed to being able to do
No, I
math.
didn't.
What's the
I
matter
didn't
with
get
you?
that. I didn't get that gene. I might have like had too much McDonald's as an early age, and it fucking got it out of me. Too many chicken nuggets.
I was vaccinated. Too many vaccines.
Yeah. Yeah, those vaccinated dumb fucks would be like, well, if he didn't get vaccinated, this Asian would have known math too,
Exactly. It's like
or
you're
been a
you're
been a
basically
doctor.
you're movie Rain Man. You're like movie music Rain Man.
Yeah,
I'm an
except
excellent tune person.
yeah, except I can't walk into a casino and fucking win a shit ton of money.
But I could walk into a fucking theater and I know what's playing in there.
Yeah, I'd be like, I walk into
A
one
video
of the
store.
casinos, walk into one of the casinos, and like they're I walk down at the blackjack table and they give me like cards, and I'm like the theme to Gladiator, and like get out.
You mean I don't get anything? What?
I'm like, wait, we're playing. Wait, what game are we playing? I just know the song.
Leave.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh my god. They should do that. Why don't they have like movie? Don't they have movie themed games? I know they have video clips. Like you watch a
They
clip and you
have
go, you know.
sometimes on Jeopardy if you're lucky. If you're lucky, they sometimes have like movie themes, and you like get to watch it or movie like clips. Like that would be the only way I would ever fucking win Jeopardy if I was lucky enough to have that one category.
From your couch.
Every time like that comes up in like a Jeopardy game, that's the category that I go for.
That's awesome. Oh, anything movie wise, I'm always good at.
Yeah.
But of course, they'll say something like, "Who was the first, African American to win best, costume design in the Oscars?" I'll be like, "Oh shit, I have no idea what that is."
Yeah, like
But
who was the first grip on Ben Hur? Like, are you fucking kidding me?
I'm sorry, I don't know, but I could guess that tune.
Oh, you
My
know what?
God.
Did you ever see? Remember when Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was like really huge with Regis Philbin was doing the host, and it was
Yes.
like must watch TV every single night because nobody got to a million. And
I
then
would have I would have won one of them. I would have won one of
one
them.
day, there was what was it like what was the threshold? It was like 500,000, 750,000, then a million. Was
Well,
that it?
no, I think it was 500 all the way to a million, and they had a $500,000 question in it, and it was
It was Star Wars.
There was a Star Wars question. Yeah, it was like, where is Luke from? And it was like
Yeah, yeah.
Tatooine, Dantooine, and a couple other Coruscant, and one other
We
one.
saw the same episode. That's the one I was talking about. That's the one I
Yeah.
was going to reference.
But see, the funny thing is,
Didn't they use a lifeline or something for that one? That guy or that
I don't
girl
know,
or
but
the woman?
here he didn't. He got to the $1 million question, but he couldn't answer it because it was basically, where do baseballs get imported from? And it was like Cuba, Haiti, Virgin Islands. It was a couple of things, and I immediately said, I think I said Haiti because Cuba we don't have trade with, and the other two were like weird outliers, and so I guessed what it was, and I would have won the $1 million. I guessed every single one of those questions right, and I remember the Star Wars question distinctly because I was like, "Holy shit! If I was sitting in that seat, I would be guaranteed 500 grand. I would have won that." And then the $1 million question, I completely guessed. I had no idea. I did it like basis like process elimination, because he went 50-50 on it, and he still didn't guess it. He's like, I'm not going to go for it because he would have lost all that money and would have ended up with like 32,000 or something. But
Right.
that's so weird. You remember that same episode? We weren't even friends back then, and we watched.
Yeah, I remember that.
Same
I think I was
episode.
on like vacation or something, and I remember that coming on. I was screaming at the fucking TV because
Oh, Tatooine, motherfucker, Tatooine! Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I was annoyed.
I think he phoned a friend or he did something. I was like, "What are you doing? Like, it's Tatooine, goddammit." Yeah, I watched the one guy that actually won the $1 million, and I think he was a guy that worked for the government. So the very
He
last
was
question,
in the IRS.
yeah, IRS, the $1 million question was, what are the holidays, or which month doesn't have holidays, or some bullshit. And he knew the answer because he, gets those days off or whatever. He guessed it, no problem. Actually, he was really cool because he's like, let me phone a friend, and he phoned his dad, and he's like, guess what, Dad? I just won $1 million, and then he answered the question and got it right. And that was such a pimp move. I was like, oh man, that's awesome.
I remember the news articles coming out after that, like that Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, like were a bunch of pussies because like the questions that he was getting apparently were really easy. So it was like, were you afraid like the IRS was going to fucking audit you if you didn't give this guy $1 million?
Right, no doubt. It's almost like this guy's on the show. Let's give him this question. Like it was so tailor made. It was ridiculous. But the guy that did the Tatooine question, I got every single question right. I would have won that freaking $1 million. So it's crazy. I got every question right. Had to guess the $1 million one because I had no freaking clue. But the next guy that came after him, like within 3 questions, he was out because they were hard, you know. And I was like, oh my god, like this show is ridiculous. It could go either way. Like if you're a total idiot savant on certain topics, like a Slumdog Millionaire type of thing, you could win. And then the other questions are just extremely hard, and you have no freaking clue. You know, really bizarre stuff. That was a funny show.
Once again, our podcast proves that we can link the most obscure fucking things possible.
No doubt. I don't have. It doesn't. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire has nothing to do with Finding Nemo. Absolutely nothing. But if
I bet you nobody's actually thought about that game show in fucking years until like they listened to this podcast.
No doubt. Like I think it's still on like during the day, but I never watch it.
Yeah, it doesn't count anymore. I don't watch it. I think Meredith, I think her name is. Does it?
Yeah. Well, I think it's somebody else now. I think she doesn't do it anymore. Yeah,
it's even worse.
But yeah. So I mean, we didn't really spoil Finding Nemo, right? I mean, they fucking found him at the end. I think people know that, but
What?
I said people, we didn't spoil Finding Nemo for anyone because they fucking found him at the end. I mean, it's called Finding Nemo. So
yeah,
if anyone hasn't
burying Nemo,
right? I mean, if killing Nemo or burying Nemo, yeah. If anyone, I mean, hasn't seen Finding Nemo by now, I mean, crawl out from under that rock and go watch it.
No, it's the 10. Good. It's the 10-year. It's the 10-year rule.
Right. That's
like
true.
If you haven't watched the fucking movie by now, like. What the fuck?
We didn't spoil the journey, but the destination's in the title. So, screw you guys. But
yeah.
Anyway, stay tuned till next week. We're going to be reviewing Finding Dory, which is Vic's number 1 video or movie of anticipated movie of this year, and mine's it's number 10 on mine. But
I got a feeling yours is going to be moving up.
I have a feeling it is as well. Well, that's episode 29 of Chew on This, a Nerds United podcast. I'm BJ.
Vic.
Chew on that till next time.
Later.